Blog Talk Radio.
I saw a cloud today. I watched it change its shape into a dinosaur, a whale, a mermaid, and a plane. The mermaid was pregnant, and then it turned into a Doberman, and the Doberman just turned back into the sky. Then I saw a little plane flying awfully low, man, dropping toxic chemicals all over my town. There to help us. They're trying to hold us down and try and take away our clouds and replace them with their own cross-dusting downtown. They save the ozone, but they don't care about your home. They're just trying out new ways of population control. We're young and we're bold. We can throw away their laws and replace them with our own. And the story will be told about the group of young adults who over the roof of Rome shone a light on just how bright this world can surely shine. Utopia works conceptually, but even in reality, to overthrow the state, you've got to be in the right state of mind. I saw a bird today, I watched it fly away, and in my heart I knew I had to do the same. Town's really gotten to me, the streets felt rotten to me, and I still can't stand those goddamn fucking planes. They're only flying now, someday they'll be bombing town. They already started a secret chemical war. They've taken all we have and still want more. The sky is saturated with rain. I swear I'm not insane. It's going to pour. It's going to pour. Don't you use no phone, 'cause the government can't bug anybody's home. But don't walk the streets alone. They might steal you in the night without your family being told. We're young and we're bold. We can throw away their walls and replace them with our own. And the story will be told about the group of young adults moving over through the throne, shone a light on just how bright this world can surely shine. Utopia works conceptually, but even in reality, to overthrow the state, you've got to be in the right state of mind. You've got to be in the right state of mind. There's no telling just how far we can fly. We're just in the right state of mind.
The right state of mind is what we try to find here at Universal Truth Evolution on blogtalkradio.com. I'm your host, once again, Jerry Avalos, and an unfamiliar situation. I'm actually the guest, too. So I'm going to be interviewing myself in a weird kind of third-person manner that seems like I'm insane. No, I'm just kidding. But I will talk more about dreams. As our regularly scheduled guest today wasn't able to attend, so we figured we'd just go ahead and go on with part two of this the whole dream situation thing, because it's such a massive subject. And please forgive my voice today if I'm coughing or anything. I got a little bit of a sore throat, but that's not going to keep me from doing my thing here. And but yeah, there were so many subjects and so many different parts of the subject we touched upon last time in terms of lucid dreaming and what that is. And that really is a once again, sort of a label more than a definition, in a sense, as the whole idea is being consciously aware of one's dream state. And this actually something that we didn't broach upon last time in Tuesday's interview had to do with that varying word itself of lucid dream. I've had people come to me and relay dreams where they would ask me, like, I had this dream where it seemed like I was watching a movie, and I wasn't really conscious during the dream, But at the same time, they say like there's nothing they would have done different had they had been consciously aware that they were in the dream. Like everything went as they would have normally chosen. And so, for instance, in those situations, I kind of consider those a lucid encounter too, because of the fact that just because you didn't have to make the conscious choice at the time doesn't necessarily mean your conscious wasn't there. And it wasn't, because obviously if you're saying there's nothing I would have done different, then you're as good as conscious anyways, and you're just kind of going with it. I think a lot of people you can equate that to, say, a time in someone's life where they felt they were going on automatic pilot, but were able to get through something. And that's just one example of kind of how that term lucid dream can be loosely applied to a lot of things, because even the laboratory experiments with lucid dreaming, like that would be a good case to contest if someone's saying, well, you have to be awake in the dream itself. Well, like I said, if you weren't going to do anything different choice-wise, then there really isn't, because when you think about what is it to have the awareness, it's to be aware of your free will, so to speak, that choice aspect, and so that is one of the key components there. So whether but it's the choice though. That's the thing, because whether you make that choice there, you make it here. That is the focus. So, so in this situation where one might not remember waking up in the dream, but they do everything the same, you kind of already made that choice before going into there, and the fact that you have the recall is actually more important than being aware in the dream and having the choice in some ways, because there are instances where you'll have full awareness in the dream state, and you'll wake up and you'll forget everything that you're aware of in that dream state. And that doesn't matter how good one thinks they are at lucid dreaming, or how often they dream, or how cool they think they are. This will happen to everyone, because it gets into a lot of that collective consciousness, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit more about in this version of our lucid dream discussion. One might be able to say these are more intermediate or advanced applications, but I do definitely tend to tie it all into the beginner as well, because, as I said, I don't believe in levels. I believe in awareness, and in terms of dream awareness, it's important to realize that dreams are more than just fantasy. I think that's the thing that a lot of people get hung up on. They equate the dream world or having dreams as being as fantasy land, which isn't true necessarily. We can act out our fantasies there, we can project our desires there, but there's also a lot more we can do, as we hear through time, many times, different times, by different people, about encounters in their dreams, whether like they'll have a precognitive experience of knowing something was going to happen before it actually does, or maybe they have a dead relative visit them in a dream, or maybe they have extraterrestrials, for that matter, visit them in a dream, or spirit guides, and anything above. So then when you get into those, it's like, well, what is the dream world? And that's why I think this version or this episode is aptly titled Sleeping While Awake, because in essence everything that we're doing is a dream, and so it's just a different state of being and different area of awareness, different dimension, shall we say. And as we traverse these different dimensions, even in the astrals, there's rules in any given dimension, or perceived rules or boundaries that define the dimension, because that, in fact, is what the definition of dimension is. It's measurement. And that's really just defined by the boundaries of whatever the awareness is. I know that sounds kind of airy-fairy and light and kind of like, where can you grab onto anything there? But when we think about it, that really is the definition of these different things, and that's why everyone can see so many different versions of the same thing. Like how I spoke last time in terms of the silver cord. And me personally, I've never needed to see that, witness that thought form, because that's really what it is. It's a thought form. But now in that sense there, thought form, or that word there, thought form, that's in a sense where these astral plane, or this astral plane, quote unquote, the dream realm is. We can, in relation to what we would perceive as our third dimensional bodies. That's obviously yet another loose interpretation of the astral plane, but in terms of our waking consciousness And our collective consciousness, most of that dimension exists in thought form, so to speak. So that's why we can have these archetypal encounters, like I shared last time with the Christ energy, as well as the concept of hell. And there is heaven as well. And honestly, this is my opinion, but heaven's boring. Robert Monroe, the founder of the Monroe Society, they do heavy research into out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming, telepathy, and so on. And he echoed that same thought, because that's like a stasis. And so when you recognize that almost any dimension with perceived boundaries is a stasis, a relative stasis. So this is why I say it's important to expand always expand your perception of the dream world and what dreaming could be, because there is no boundaries, and the fact that we're all part of this collective consciousness means that collective consciousness is ever expanding. So no matter how dogmatic one might get about the seventh dimension and the astral, the fifth, and there's this kind of pavement and that one, and blah, 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 it all can change, It all can change, and very, very relatively arbitrary too, because that's the collective choice of this, this collective reality. So it's important to not get too attached to perception, but at the same time know the origin of your perceptions. Who are you? Identity. That's the biggest thing in terms of getting any kind of lucidity. You have to know who you are. Because that way, this helps for especially those who've experienced dreams consistently, or have had interesting dream experiences where they experience being in a different body, in a different time, different dimension, like I was saying, but maybe not as they recognize themselves now, but recognizing your belief system, what catalyzes your thoughts and everything, will help you recognize when you are dreaming, because you're not in that other body. You're not in that body. You're in this other body. And so that's the thing. It's catching discrepancies in what you perceive as the collective reality will help keep you grounded, aka lucid, in the dream realm. Knowing that your physical body, this third dimensional physical body, is in this third dimension, in your bed, sleeping, or couch, wherever you passed out that night, knowing that it's there, safe from whatever is happening on the other side. And so that is really the key to lucidity, is grounding, and different ways to ground yourself. And I know that, once again, is a highly subjective term we hear it thrown around all the time, and this is why I use that term in these exercises, because in this sense, being aware that you're in your bed during a dream sequence or event is a sense of grounding. Because you're in a relative connect to the earth, however you want to say it, and so that in a sense it's really redefining the sense of ego or self, because that's one thing, just really quick, I'd like to speak on, is the concept of ego when I use it. When I use it, I do not synonymize it with pride or like how one might say egotism. That's the common, really, misconception that what ego means. It means over pride or attachment. Okay, but when I use it, I am talking about self. It means your own individuation as you define it as I. So in that sense, one can never be rid of ego unless you're like part of a collective, or you're going to be assimilated into a collective. That's why it's very dangerous in cult situations. That's why they try to give you different names and try to assimilate you, because it takes away that sense of ego, which is not healthy. So when I talk about ego, I'm not talking about it as the enemy, which a lot of people in the metaphysical, self-help, whatever, seem to do, and that's not true, because it's counterproductive. So when I'm talking about ego, I'm talking about your own perception of self, and know that perception of self can always change and expand. And with that in mind, that is going to give you the solidarity, because just recognizing that within yourself gives you what I call a conscious loop. And this is what I started talking about last time in terms of recognizing stuff in your day-to-day and what it means to you and the associations to it. And just a quick recap for those who might be listening to the show for the first time. This technique I'm talking about is recognizing images or objects in your day-to-day life that you encounter, and then consciously identifying the associations. I love my car. I hate my car. People think this of my car because it's red. It's this make, so everyone knows it for its longevity. So understanding those is what starts to build your lexicon in the dream realm, and that allows you to understand the different symbols that you're seeing in the dream realm. But even if you say are projecting into into a relatively quote unquote real time situation, as we've seen some applications of remote viewing via dreams. And for those who want more information on that, you can go check out Monroe Society or some of the work done at Stanford Research Institute, and which was also mentioned in Joseph McMonagle's book about this too. So even in that realm, in that situation or application, shall I say, of real-time data gathering, your ego is still, or that self, that perception, those filters, whatever you identify as you, is going to play a factor in that. And so there's a certain amount of data that's going to be skewed. So this is an important point to make in terms of those who are to attach to the ego that they have of being such a great dreamer, or I'm such a powerful dreamer, I know all my dreams, what they mean, blah, blah, blah. Fine. That's one interpretation of all your dreams, but there's many more. And that's all based upon your perception. So it has to be let go and factored in the very least. Factor in that this is my assessment, and then say, I'm wrong, and then do it again. That's the biggest tip I can give anyone who wants to interpret their own dreams. Give yourself an interpretation, find out what you think it means, and then assume you're wrong about every single thing and see if you can make it work again. Another way, apply it in your life somewhere. Because even in the most cryptic dreams are probably the most profound information, because that's the amalgamation of a whole bunch of concepts that are coming to a very high point of probability, or have come to a high point of probability of manifestation. So understanding why you saw the purple zebra-coated bunny, with bug eyes jumping across your field of vision, okay, that might seem nonsensical, but that's your nonsense. So you have to look at it that way. Well, dreams are just that's so nonsense. Oh, it's just a stupid dream. You're talking about yourself, because that was your dream. So when we dismiss our dreams, we're dismissing ourselves. So you have to remember that. You have to remember that when we dismiss things, we're dismissing ourselves. And as I made the equation last time of how, in relation to how these archetypes work, or how these archetypes are perceived, they it's all part of a collective consciousness. So at the same time, we all have certain similarities. So I give the metaphor of a computer and the internet being a lot of the dream world. We can stay on our computer, play our games, do our work, write our book, do all of these things like that, and never go on the internet. And that's true about dreams too. You can have just this fulfilling of life, having your own sort of computer life, never talking to anyone on the internet, never listen to Blog Talk Radio or Universal Truth Evolution, maybe. But yeah, you get my point. See, now when we jump on the internet, what happens? We start getting connected in a different way. Everything's become more rich. Everything becomes more rich, and there's a lot more experiences and wisdom we can get from a lot of it. And so, in that sense, by recognizing the reflections of ourselves in our outer world is how we connect into that astral internet, so to speak. By recognizing that it's not your car, you drive that car and it's part of this world, and it goes one place that's also part of this world, and because that also factors into why you saw that car in the dream, because of the associations of where you drive instead of having a submarine, because that's the thing that I find when doing interpretations and hearing others interpretations of their own dreams and saying, I'm missing something, there's something I'm missing, can you help me find this? And it's usually the fact that they forget the obvious, like you're in a car, not an airplane, you're or a submarine, and you're on a car in a location you recognize. So these things let us know, like, so the car, just for those who aren't too familiar with general archetypal associations with dream sign like cars. Cars tend to symbolize our bodies and our general life direction, or our life direction in that situation or subject, depending on the context of the dream. And the condition of the car, who's driving the car, also factors into how this applies to your life. So, like for instance, if you're driving on a freeway, you're going way too fast and it's almost dangerous, and you have your friend who's driving it, and you're in the passenger seat looking at him going like, oh damn man, don't kill us. That might be an indicator that you're letting your friends dictate your life too much in directions that you don't want to go, and maybe even carrying you too fast into endeavors that you aren't ready for. So that's one application of how like that symbol tends to be utilized in most people's dream. But that's the thing; it's a car. It has that symbolization, a general connotation to it, and at least for those of us here sharing this reality now in terms of automobiles. Obviously, for someone, say, who's indigenous in the middle of Africa who doesn't use vehicles like that, their dream symbols are going to be a little bit different in terms of that. They might see themselves walking or something, and whatever they're wearing or whatever they're carrying. But the point is the concepts and the associative meanings with them of moving on the path. So, excuse me. So that's what I'm saying in terms of the associations being the language, the lexicon itself of how to navigate. A lot of misconception I see in a lot of people, honestly, even in some of the people who are very knowledgeable and very proficient at doing this kind of work, but they still have that sense that they have to have a body, or that it's like we're all of a sudden walking into a physical realm. It's more than physical. It has to do. That's why these associations play such a big role, because everything is interlinked in a more apparent way, and so in this life, a lot of people rationalize in their mind, man, it's 12:22. Does that mean anything? Or oh yeah, that song just came up on the radio just for coincidence. See, those things like that, as we know, those can play into synchronicity, and they're subtle here. But in that dream realm, those what we perceive as subtleties can literally be conceptual pivot points of reality. Just as I talked last time about being in the bandwidth of anger versus love, how you can experience life in love, you can experience life in anger, and it still has all those associations of both elements shared. So in the sense of, you're in your car, and you're like, wow, my friend's just driving way too fast, but I love this car. Just recognizing that you're awake, and you said, I love this car, you can now make an astral right turn into your concept of love, which you can now pivot to another scene and not have to worry about, oh crap, I'm going to crash. I have to make these decisions on fear. Now, that is when you have lucidity. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting, I think, for those who experience some of these things consistently, because now by doing that, even by doing that in that realm in a symbolic manner, it's about you let your friends tell you too much, dictate your life too much, and then you say, you know what, I love this car. In a sense, what did you just say? Okay, you're thinking about your car in 3D, but then what was I talking about? The associations, our life direction, our body, and our condition. So you just said, I love myself. And so by doing that, you just alter the course of your perceptions. And then from there, you can go wherever you want to go. And now you are living in love instead of fear. And that's also what that dream was saying is going on somewhere in your life. And when you make those changes, those are profound. Profound. And when I say living in love versus fear and anger, I don't tend to do it as airy, fairy, fluffy, nice, happy, as some of the others in the metaphysical realm, because I recognize there's a physiological fact to that. It has to do with the fight or flight response. When we're in fear or anger or hate, we're in fight or flight response. Energy, all of our blood is rushing to our extremities, moving away from our frontal cortex of all the higher functions. And so we're actually not, and we're in conserve mode. So a lot of things don't regenerate. They don't heal. So when that happens, we stop growing. We're actually kind of degrading. And so this is what you can see this happening even in people, in their day-to-day. The people who tend to be angry all the time, don't they tend to look pretty like ragged, like physically they look worn? Because they're not generating, because they're in that fight or flight mode. And when you're in love, you're in nurture mode. So that means you are growing. It's like when a baby is feeding. There's no anger or nothing there. It's just happy, content, and it's being loved. It grows. And that's the same kind of thing now in terms of physiologically. You're not, all that blood isn't going to the extremities. It's now into the higher function. Now you're going into healing mode, and your body is repairing itself. So once this works in, and this applies directly into the dream realm, because you're at the subconscious level. So you actually are making subconscious belief changes in the dream while you're lucid. So that's another point that is missed upon a lot of teachings, and I think it's a shame, or they don't illustrate that enough, because a lot of these modalities of healing, psyche, hypnotherapy, EFT, access awareness, these kind of modalities, they all talk about the same kind of subconscious belief change, and with a conscious component. And so it's all the same thing. So it's like here I'm talking about dreaming in that context with a conscious component. And so it's the same work. So in terms of healing, you can do some great healing work doing via dreams. And that's one of the practical applications of even setting your intention to do that, say, before you go to sleep. And this gets into one of the techniques that I like to share in terms of dream journaling. I think last show I possibly didn't emphasize the dream journal enough, at least for my own liking. I'm not due to anyone's feedback, but just my own emphasis, because the dream journal, like I said, gives you a way to kind of track your mind. It lets you know what you've been thinking about, whether you consciously acknowledge it or not. It allows us to step away from ourselves and get a different perspective of who we are in our life. And what was I saying about earlier about kind of letting go of attachment to ego or perceived ego at any given time. So this gives us a tool, and especially in hindsight. Hindsight you're going to love it. You're going to love it when you start dream journaling, especially for those who dream consistently. Because especially those who dream consistently and they recognize the precognitive elements of any dream. You in particular will probably really love the journal, because what happens is all of these things that you thought were nonsensical because your conscious mind couldn't put it in a linear order because it's the future, so good luck, will make sense in hindsight. And then you'll look in your journal and you'll go, oh, wow, look at all these things that I see that were associated to this dream, this event, this actual physical event that happened a week later, a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later, a year later. But then you'll realize, why didn't my conscious mind put it together? And then you can see the symbols of what they were. You can look back and say, like, oh, yeah, I see why I got this symbol of this, and I see why I didn't recognize that, because of my distaste for this subject made me block out the other half of this information here and factor it in because I thought I was right. Something like that. And then you can expand, because that's one thing that I've noticed just in general and this goes for everyone. This isn't one person. No one person is more accurate in connecting to the Akashic records, that information layer, or whatever. There's no one who's necessarily like better at it than anyone else. The thing is that people get better at interpreting and disseminating that information down. That's the difference, because we're all connected to that layer anyways. So in the dreams, I'm sure many of you who have experienced a lot of dreams can attest to this, where in hindsight, maybe looking at a journal, you see how you thought your dream meant one thing when it happened. You're like, I know this means I'm going to get that job. And I know it. I know it's going to, because you saw in the dream that you got the job. You're like, oh, of course, that's what it means. That has to be what it means. It has to. So now time goes by and you didn't get that job. You're like, damn, I didn't get that job. And so now you're like, oh, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. And then you almost forget some of the details of that dream of that job too, recognizing that, okay, yeah, some of it looked like that place, some of it didn't, you know? But then now a month goes by, and you recognize some of those things that didn't look like that place you got hired. Now you recognize there this other place who just called to hire you. You know, so, and you recognize, oh, I'm looking for a job of this type. That's why I got that symbol of the job I was after before, but then the transposition of that stuff that wasn't quite like what that real place was, which I thought was nonsensical symbol, was actually precognitive information for the place I'd actually be working at. And so there we go. You're connected to the Akashic. You're connected to the information layer. You got the right information the first time, but it was your conscious mind who misinterpreted it. So that's one example, but that's a fairly obvious one too. They're not always that obvious, but they do become more obvious once you actually have the journal. Excuse me. And so once you have that journal, you're able to start seeing what your symbols are and how they function in relative to not only your subconscious, but your conscious mind. And in hindsight, like I said, you're able to change. You're able to change that. So now all of a sudden, now you recognize, okay, now when I have that transposition of a location that I for sure thought was there, now I'm going to pay more attention to that transposition and those symbols inherent with that, because that could be giving me associative arcs, ties, whatever, to the probable outcome. So, because that's the other thing. We can't get attached to any future, because of the fact that future is a concept unto itself that hasn't happened yet. Now it's happening. Now it's eternally happening, just as the future is eternally happening, just as the past is eternally happening. But they're bandwidths onto themselves, like we were talking about. So it's really not too wise to get too attached, like I said, to some of these outcomes. You know, it's okay to recognize, yeah, okay, there's a high probability I'm right on this. Fine. You know, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, that's cool. We should do that. We should have confidence in what we're seeing and who we are. But it just seems that there's a lot of attachment to what one feels is going to happen without recognizing that choice is still there, and that, you know what, the universe might be able to dream up a better solution than even we might have thought of. So if we leave ourselves open to possibilities. So so this is the thing about just really attachment. It's really important to not have an attachment to an outcome, but just have a foundation. Have your own foundation. That's why I keep going back to recognizing your own understanding of everything in your life, and start with the things that you tend to see in your day to day, because usually those are a big component of your day-to-day, of your day-to-day dreams, shall I say, or night-to-night dreams. But it's usually like you don't see your house, but that might be represented as a color of the dream, or it might be represented as a shirt, for that matter. It doesn't even matter. It kind of just depends on how the associations of kind of moving around with those associations, like the example I did of the car and love. How it's like you see like a fuzzy sort of logic that kind of comes out from just those shared concepts of love, and then the body and such, and now all of a sudden you shifted, and like it's to go back into that example of that car dream. Where now we said, you know what, I love this car, and now you're using that. Now you're consciously using that to shift, and the scene changes. Now that scene can, because you're talking about I love this car, and you know all that stuff. You're talking about the body and your general life direction. So now that whole thing might switch. That whole context might switch into where this dream is about your health now. You know, so, and you see how there's like that right turn, that perceived right turn that just happened there conceptually. And so that's why I know that this subject of these associations in the dream realm and how to navigate can get kind of confusing because of how these associations work and how they all tie in together. But that's the trick, because those associations, and this is something that I think a lot of those who are interested in intuitive arts might really appreciate too, is that those associations in the dream world, which comprise our symbols, in our own lexicon symbols are the same web of associations that's pinged when we have a waking psychic experience. And for instance, it's the same associations of let's say I'm doing my show on Blog Talk here on Universal Truth Evolution, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about my sixth grade. I'm like, oh wow, I'm thinking about my sixth grade class. I'm like, why am I thinking of that for? And it's like then old friend that I knew from way back in elementary, sixth grade calls. I'm sure a lot of people have these experiences, but see that the association. It wasn't like, oh, I knew that Chucky was calling. It was that it was the school came in first, and my association with it comes up, and so that's that same web of associations. Once again, that is what we're immersed in the dream realm, and it's part of that daytime intuition. So when we understand our own dream lexicon and why that's there, we actually get a little more sharper with our intuition too, because now we know what's moving us internally. We know what concepts are tugging at us and why they're being pinged. When say that there is a telepathic, transmission, shall we say, and or energetic one of any kind. So it all works into that same web. And so that dream realm, it's really it is a reflection of everything around us and more, depending on what's going on. But understanding that reflection, that those associations and the connections that we're sharing is really what helps us gain more awareness, more lucidity. Because now we're really communicating with our subconscious in relation to our own self-preservation algorithms, shall we say, in our own body. Your body has memory. Your body knows when it needs something. And a lot of times dreams are our body trying to tell us that. It's I'm sure many people have had dreams concerning maybe their health, maybe an illness or something, to warn them about that, or one quick experience I had personally about that. Years ago, I was diagnosed at the time with type 2 diabetes. I'm not that anymore, but it was in the beginning stages, and one of the doctors prescribed to me a drug called Avandia, and I was taking it for a while, and I remember I got a kind of weird feeling from it when I was taking it. I mean, when I looked at it, I'm like, oh no, well, I'll try it to see what happens. And so I was taking it for a while, and one night I have a dream where I every single one of those pills, I spit them back up in my hand, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, I guess I better not take those. So I stopped taking them, and then no more than a week later did the FDA release their report about how it gave certain people heart complications, that drug. So apparently my subconscious was like, hey, this isn't a good idea for you. And because I was in tune enough to listen, I was able to get that information before having to have the man tell me it's okay. You know what I mean? So, because I should have been trusting that subconscious from the beginning when I was looking at that pill going, I don't know about this. Because it was, I'm not hugely into taking pills, but I'm not too proud to slam a Motrin or something once in a while if I have to. It's not going to kill you just once in a while. So we can't give too much power to that. So at the same time, I said this is something a little different. But that's one example of how dreams can very literally, tell you don't do something for your own health. So it's very so it's very important that we pay attention to even the most perceivably nonsensical symbols in our dream, and then ask yourself, what do I feel by looking at that? If you have some kind of fantastic animal, it's like, do you recognize it as fantastic or do you recognize it as absurd? Because that's giving you an indicator of how you view life as well. Because if now you're looking at something that would be out of the ordinary as being absurd, if you take it in a associative, an alternate associative interpretation, is you're kind of looking at anything that pops into your life that would be out of the ordinary as being absurd, as opposed to, wow, that's cool. And that has to do with your own reaction. So it's like your first reaction is like, oh, that's stupid or that's weird. Well, that's how you look at life. That's how you would look at something. If that freaking leopard or purple zebra printed, bunny jumped across, you'd be like, ugh, more than likely, or not necessarily like, oh, damn, that's cool. And that gives you a little bit of indication of how you view life. And once again, that gives us an indicator of where our sense of ego is. And how I said in the dream realm, and how this really, one of the best ways to apply this is to expand that awareness of self. And so that's what I'm saying, even the most nonsensical experience will have a lot of wisdom there for you. Even if it's just like this weird freaking glowing bunny going across, you're like, whoa, or what the hell is this? That's stupid. Why is that there? That lets you know how you think. And that's what you're trying to do in terms of getting any lucidity or awareness in your dream. You have to know how you think about things in order to disseminate information, even representational images. One second. Because that factors in too. And I'll share another experience with representational images that was fairly recent history. As many of you know, I play in a rock band called Apathy, and we've had members come and go, over the years. We've been playing for a little while, and in this one instance, there was a band member who I think we could tell wasn't happy, and for one reason or another. But really just didn't want to leave at the same time because of, didn't want to leave us high and dry, so to speak. But as many of us know, in situations where you're dealing with groups, that tends to result in tension when someone is expressing what they really want to say. So either way, we're having practice one day, and we're working on some stuff in our studio, and it was a long day, and so we're going to be out for a little while longer. And so I told them, hey, I'm going to just go lay down and take a nap for like an hour, and I'll be back. They're like, all right, cool. So my bandmates are kind of left in the studio doing their thing, and I go to sleep. And so while I'm sleeping, I start dreaming. I start getting a highly symbolic representation of the studio, and I'm seeing a symbolic representation of both my bandmates and one of our friends who was there at the time, and I'm seeing them arguing. And I'm like, yes, I know that there's these issues, and I really don't want to see this right now. It's kind of almost why I just want to rest right now, in a lot of ways. And so I'm sleeping, and I try to brush it away, but then I couldn't kind of change the scene, which I'm usually pretty good at doing. And what happens is that divine white light starts coming in, and I'm like, oh wow! And then the symbolic studio sort of opens up as like gates in a sense to the actual studio. And now I'm like a point of consciousness sitting in the middle of the studio, hearing precisely everything that's going on in the studio, even though I'm a good, say, 40 yards away between at least 5 walls. So, and I'm seeing an argument. And I'm hearing stuff being said, and I'm seeing where one of my friends is, pacing back and forth, and the other one's standing in a certain place where they normally aren't, and all these very distinct stuff. And I'm looking at this, hearing this, and I'm going, why am I seeing this? What's going on? And I'm like, oh well, I probably better get up anyway, because I don't really want to stay asleep that long. And I have no idea how much time went by. So I wake up, and I'm walking back out to the studio, and as I'm walking up, our friend who was there sees me kind of walking up, and he kind of walks out, and he kind of gives me a heads up. He's like, they're fighting. And I'm like, oh, of course they are. And when I walk in, I'm seeing my friend pacing and my other bandmate sitting in an unusual place, kind of everything exactly how it was. So it's very, very representational. And at the same time, I knew I was aware that I was sleeping in my bed, and I was aware I was in this other room experiencing exactly what was going on in real time. So one could say that is like a bilocational experience, because I was very conscious, very aware, and I was very aware that I was in my bed. I was very aware that and I was immersed in a different place at the same time, perceiving stuff. And that's the thing. Even though I was in the other location perceiving things, it was still my own filters that were perceiving it. I didn't see any actual like highly symbolic imagery. I saw representational symbolic imagery because it wasn't like in my mind or in my mind that's sitting there in bed, or whatever. I wasn't actually in the room with my 3 friends. It was my mind that was. So it's a representation, a symbolic representation of what's actually going on. But it's still my own perceptions of like why they were fighting, why this is going on. I got a little more insight into how everyone really felt because there is a little more psychic conductivity in the astral, shall we say. But it was a lot of stuff that was just confirmed, really. So that's the thing, though, because once again, even in the representational symbolism of even a precognitive experience, which I'm sure many listeners have had before, where they see something pretty much damn near close to what actually happened, minus, say, a car passing that didn't, or one person standing someplace and that person wasn't there. Those are representational symbols, and those are still your own construct in one way, shape, or form because of that reflection principle. And then the choice aspect comes in of why that car drove by or didn't, and that gets into that quantum copy concept that I was talking a little bit about last time. Of how at any given time all those choices are kind of floating around, where we went this way instead of that way, we got up instead of sit down, and same thing with this. So even in those, that tends to be one of the reasons why, I can't say it's every single time, but it tends to be one of the reasons why some of those precognitive experiences aren't like dead on 100% accurate, because they almost can't be because of choice. So, and recognizing that alone is going to make one more accurate in that discipline. Because it's kind of like doing your own checking, your own verification on your data. Because not everyone's going to have a team of other people that do it, like some of these, you hear about some of these government programs and such. But we're all capable of doing all of these things. It's just a matter of belief and expansion. And that's specifically what I speak to in terms of how to utilize one's dream sense, or even expanding the dream sense in its entirety in terms of just induction. And so recognize, even just listening to this philosophy here may help induce more dreams, because if you recognize that, I can see how now why I had this dream before, and now I can see some of those associations. That, in a way, unlocks intellectual blocks that are sitting there that were keeping you from progressing on that dream path. And an interesting question in the chat room here, which I'll go ahead and talk about right now, is in terms of precognition and premonitions. Because, it seems to be more common than a lot of people, than a lot of the general populace seems to recognize. But I've heard so many people usually relate to me a precognitive dream experience first as like their proof or what makes them curious. And people who say, I don't even dream, but I had this dream where I saw my aunt was going to visit and blah, blah, blah. But can you change that? Can you change it when you know it? Sometimes. Sometimes you can, yes. And sometimes that's specifically why you're being shown that premonition, because it could be your subconscious warning you, hey, don't let your friend drive. You know what I mean? It's kind of related to that dream again. Excuse me. And you can make that choice. Don't get in that car. You know what I mean? Sometimes, though, it's really kind of, one might say it gets into their soul agreement or their soul plan, their destiny, one might say. And there is some truth to destiny. But the thing is, it's not like someone else writes it for you. You write it for yourself from that higher self, like I was speaking to last time. Ups and downs, good and bad. Because at one point, it's all over. So there's no reason to stay attached to the pain, the anger, all these other things, because at one point, it's over. So in terms of changing precognition and premonition, it really kind of depends on the situation. Usually, when you get, you kind of know, like in yourself, you'll know, because you'll try to make all of these these logical alternative pathways. Well, if I did this, then this will happen, or if I just don't show up, this will happen, or blah, blah, blah. But if you keep coming to the fact that something like that conceptually is going to happen, guess what? That's probably on your soul plan, in your soul agreement somewhere. If you conceptually come back to the same conclusion, get prepared. But if you can see conceptual arcs or changes, where, oh yeah, it's easy for me not to show up, and then I can just call my friend and say, fuck off, you're too dangerous for me. Crisis averted. You know what I mean? So it really just kind of depends on what's going on. But that the reason that you've seen it, though, even have the precognitive premonition, is so that you can recognize that choice. Because in a sense, yes, you can change it. It changes by the simple fact that you're aware of it than what you originally saw. It's kind of a conundrum, a little bit of a paradox, but that's such as this whole thing of flipping from one reality to another. So, but that's there for you to know for a reason. I don't condone psychic breaking and entering at all. I think it's one of the worst things you can do for yourself and other people. But sometimes I'm sure people have experienced where they've just got information from somebody about either in a dream or just psychically while they're standing next to them, like, oh, for some reason I know about this person's grandmother now and how they had the candy dish or whatever, and you weren't trying. See, there's a reason that even came into your consciousness, and you can say that the higher selves facilitated that without your conscious knowledge too. So that's the thing. It's like you are meant to be aware of it. So if anything, when we have these precognitive experiences, ask yourself, why would your higher self feel you need to be aware of this? And that might give you a good idea of where to start taking, how you should apply this information that you're getting in terms of precognition in a way that won't go counterflow to what might inevitably happen anyways. A little bit about myself, and the reason why I know this is not just because I'm just throwing out my ass and like, oh, let's give me an answer. Because I learned the hard way, honestly. And I'm not trying to be boastful. It's one of the things when I was younger, when I was a child, I'd have precognitive dream experiences more often than not. They'd work into my other dream contexts and situations and experiences, but I'd have some kind of precognitive element which I recognized pretty much, bam, that's your day. And so much so, and this is and I think Chris, our listener who asked this question, will appreciate this, is because for years I actually purposely tried to go against some of these things because I've seen them, just being rebellious. Because I was very young. I mean, we're talking like, from the time I was, in elementary school, 5, 6, all the way up to like 12, 13. By the time I got into junior high and such, I kind of like gave up. So I think it was really the elementary school when I was really like, no. And so a lot of times I would stay home from school, for instance. Like if I saw, oh, my day is going to be like this person's going to give me crap about that, and then the teacher's going to say this, and then it's like, all right, I won't go. Or, but I'll know, how would I know I'm right, though? That was actual precognitive experience, how I changed it, because the homework would be exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I would have, or whatever, or some of these other things that I couldn't have known about, I would know and just be ready for. And so, like, I would be okay in terms of my grades because I kept up with my schoolwork. I just didn't go to school. So I'd use that dream sense to kind of know, like not have to study, I guess, in a sense too, a little bit. But it's elementary school, so it's not like too whoa, you know what I mean? But I did use that dream, have used and applied that lucidity to solve a lot of problems, of both the personal, interpersonal, as well as just, even in school during some of those, schoolwork too. Because everything you can, there's so many different ways you can apply your dream consciousness. It's unlimited. Like that's why I was talking about last time of insomniacs being some of the best candidates for lucid dreaming, because they can keep their mind going over and over and over and over and over again in a loop, whether they realize it or not. Sometimes those loops are big, but the smaller you can make those loops, which one can say is maybe a mantra, will give you focus and intention. And that's what you need to induce the kind of lucid encounter that you're aiming for. If you can keep that conscious mind engaged, the body asleep, you'll have success. So that's a note to all of you lucid dream, your insomniacs out there, or people who think you're just too smart for your own good and have to keep thinking all the time. Get over yourself. Work it down to a fine little concept, little mantra of your problem, and just put your body to sleep, and you'll get your answer. You'll be happy you did, and I'm sure you'll have some fun flying around the astral plane for a while too afterwards, because it's very uplifting when we see the solution, or we hear the solution, or we feel the solution, or we just know the solution. Because that's the other thing. It's very important not to get hung up on the fact that all dream information has to come from a vivid, surreal, submersive experience. The important thing is the awareness. Like I say, in terms of that, it's always the awareness. No levels, just awareness. So, if the fact that you get the awareness of whatever you have to do in order to apply it to manifest what you have to here is the important thing. So, and this is once again, this comes from, doing it the hard way. Don't don't always quest for the immersive dream experience, because that might not be what you need. Especially when you're looking to use your dream consciousness for problem solving, you just need the answer. So just keep that focused. The other stuff is going to happen, whether you realize it or not. That's why I say if someone's supposed to have one of these profound spiritual experiences via the dreams, it doesn't matter what they're eating, what they're doing, all this other stuff. You're going to have it, because that works into the soul plan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after this break here. And we'll get a little bit more into things like how we can start understanding our spirit guides. How does this factor into our soul agreement and why we're here, and how can we utilize that for it? So, and if there's any questions, or if anyone wants to call in, maybe wants some input on any one of their dream symbols or dreams in general, feel free to call in. This is open, and I think this forum here is a good one to present, because there's a lot of knowledgeable people in our audience as well who might have some valuable input as well. So, but yeah, so feel free to ask any questions, and we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back, and we'll get more into astral plane and madness. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for hanging out here for our second hour of Universal Truth Evolution on blogtalkradio.com. So we're talking a lot more about dreams in the astral layer and a bunch of applications that I think most people try to make you pay for. So anyway, it also gets into stuff that honestly is hard to prove, but that's why I can't say enough about the whole dream journal thing. Because even a dream journal isn't proof necessarily on some stages, because one can easily say, oh, you just wrote that, as one of our prior guests, Del Graff, talked about, unless you kind of take a picture of it, mail it to yourself, or email it to yourself, or do something like that. And in which case, it's like, is that for you, or is that for the skeptical people who you honestly don't really care that much about anyways? So you have to ask yourself that, especially in terms of what's going on and how you want to apply your dream consciousness. Are you looking for proof? Who are you looking to prove to? Is it to you? Is it to someone else? Because that also gets into the power aspect. This is another thing I see a lot and I want to talk a little about. It's cool when you have all these kind of abilities to kind of, okay, I'm going to go to sleep, see what I want. Okay? Yeah, it's fine. It's fun. Fun enough. Okay. But it doesn't really matter, because what really matters, and I use that word half punny, is why we're here now on Camp Human here on Earth. It's that's what matters, and because we're here to share this consciousness for however long we're all here for a while. But so this is the thing. This is what's important. This gets into what I wanted to talk about in terms of kind of our soul path and how we can utilize our dream to navigate that, make changes, all other kinds of things, because it's the awareness. And so that's what I'm saying about the whole power thing. If someone's looking to get into any of these things, be it remote viewing, Reiki, lucid dreaming, anything to do with kind of hyperdimensional energy, shall we say, and awareness, for power, there is a serious, shall we say, a serious lack of self-worth there. There is issues, there are self-esteem issues there that feel that you need to have more than what you already have, instead of recognizing you are who you are and you're exactly who you're supposed to be right now, and know that you're in the process of being who you will become. So there's no trying to, there's no striving, you're just in this phase. That understanding, living life like that, gets you through a lot of blocks, honestly, that would for the most part, alter your perception of the dream realm. Of recognizing, your own power of who you are now. Because that, once again, is that universal sort of jukebox of information, of psychic awareness is now. Because conceptually, everything happens now. You hear Eckhart Tolle talk about this too, about how ultimately now is all there is. And that doesn't mean to throw everything to the wind and all, forget about the future. It's like our future builds the now we're looking for, and our past reminds us. So it all works in together. But knowing that is what helps recognize when you have to inject your consciousness in terms of the dream realm, and how when it's actually going to be essentially drawn into that dream to make a choice. And that's one method of kind of astral traveling, which is one I highly recommend, where one isn't sitting there trying to perpetually consciously experience the dream realm, because there's almost no reason to, because you'll find that your subconscious, like the things that you already sort of believe anyways, are going to carry you where you want to go faster anyways than what your conscious mind is going to want to do. And so this gets into where we start bringing congruency, our conscious mind, our subconscious, and our higher self. When we do that, then we start getting insight into why we're here. What are we supposed to do? What's our soul plan? And how are we constantly interacting with it? That's the biggest thing. I think too many people to hear that, what's your life path, your soul path, and they don't recognize that it is It's changing. You are in control of that. It is not relinquished to anything. It's not your guides. It's not any ascended masters. It's nothing like that. It's you. It's your higher self. And so what happens is, like how I spoke in the last interview on Tuesday, concerning relinquishing the perception of control to that higher version of oneself, your higher self, not anyone else's, no God, no entity, not Jesus, not Muhammad, no one like that. You and God. Go there. When you have that, essentially, you will start communicating more through that higher self, from that collective consciousness, God, whatever you want to call it. And that will give you, the experiences will give you more indication of why you're here and who you're supposed to meet. A lot of people, you hear this a lot now because a lot of it's going on. You're seeing a gathering coming. You're seeing people who never knew each other. All of a sudden, it feels as if they're lifelong friends by the first time they meet. Things like that play into why we're meeting each other, and all those things get into what is happening on those different dimensions of reality. Those causal planes, the astral planes, the spiritual planes, and all these other things, all these other dimensions. So when you have more awareness of your role here, not that you can have full awareness of what goes on here, or full awareness, what goes on with you, because you can't, because that part of you it's experiencing everything at the same time. As I say, the higher self would experience eternal hindsight and eternal foresight. It's always there. So even when your conscious mind recognizes the soul plan from a dream experience, let's say you're like, I've now had this profound experience where I know for a fact, because everything fits, there's no logic about it, it's there, and I can verify this in my own way as soon as I wake up. This is what I need to do. That's only for the moment. That's just for the moment, because of choice, because of change. And recognize that, and as long as you recognize that your higher self kind of has your back, so to speak, you'll be okay through the change. There's no reason to even worry about it, but just recognize that. And you'll be surprised, because then a lot of times some of these things that happen in our lives that seem like downfalls are really to set us up for something better. And all of a sudden life has a little different meaning. And so all of this can be facilitated through the dream realm with the help of the higher self, as well as looking into spirit guides as well. And how do we recognize when our guides are talking or our higher self is talking? Well, it's by understanding ourselves, like I was saying earlier, about understanding why you have all the associations you do. Because in a sense, we're all kind of like our own higher selves, like, third dimensional robot. We're like little god machines. And so there's only so much perception that's really going to get crammed into this little body here. And that's another thing. Trust me, I've tried. It's like, you can really try. It doesn't matter. Because of the fact that we're so anchored here in this reality. So when we understand ourselves, we start clearing those channels of communication. Instead of getting that telepathic ping during my waking state of sixth grade, I'm actually starting to get like male, blah blah age, da da da. So then, okay, it starts focusing. Same thing goes for the dream realm. When you start recognizing, like, now I see why that bunny was weird to me. That bunny will change. You might not even see that bunny again unless it's in relation to that experience. Or your car. Like how, okay, now I see why. Now I understand why sometimes I see my car very shiny and very cool, because this is when when I feel my own sense of freedom. And then when I feel like my friends are driving my life too much, it seems to be banged up. You know what I mean? So understanding that creates a form of communication, its own language, your own language. And then what are we talking about? We're talking about communicating with your higher self. So that's the bridge, is knowing yourself, because it's yourself talking. So we can get dreams from our guides, stuff like that we might not even see them. A lot of people don't even see their guides. They don't even know what their guides look like. You don't even really have to. It doesn't even matter. What is understanding that the dream that you got could be from there, how one can help decipher that is that when you have a dream from your guides, it's never going to tell you what to do. They're going to present options. So you're going to have more options. We're going to realize you have more options after these experiences. How you do that, though, what you do with those options, that's up to you. So, and you got to be careful what you ask for, even in terms of lucid dreaming. And I'll get into this because it works into the technique with the dream journal of what you're trying to accomplish with your dreams. To really be serious about that, to really gain consistency, you do have to journal, like I said. And the thing is, when you journal before you go to sleep, or any time before you sleep, it can be during your day too, but write in your entry for the day coming up, or for this day that you're going to sleep, your intention. And focus on that intention, one way or another. If it means you're meditating on it, great. If you can just kind of write it and know it's there, fine. If you have to build your intention, let's say you want to visit this vacation spot. If you have to know, get in your mind, I want to go do this, I want to go do that, I want to go check out the waterfall there, I want to go hang out on the beach on the sunset. Get all that stuff straight. Get your intention down, write it there, and then utilize the technique of having that thought form in your mind while you're allowing your body to relax. With the technique I shared last time, which I'll do a brief version of this time, which has to do with feeling different points on your body, and even just odd points that most people think about, like the part in between your top of your foot, between your ankle and your toes, every little part, and feel the tension and release it. Start bringing in a feeling of floating on complete relaxation and tranquility, while you have your dream intention circling as a mantra, and allow that to happen. And as imagery, audio stuff will come through, just allow it to flow. There's some other once you realize your body is asleep, you can do this a couple of ways, like how I gave a suggestion of having your arm up. And when it falls down, your body's just about ready to go to sleep, so lay there. Or you can do the inverse of having yourself lay there and try to lift up your arm really fast, as fast as you can. And if there's any delay, it means your body's going to sleep. So you're getting there. So at the point that you're starting to see imagery, you can just kind of relax into the imagery. Or some people like to kind of in their mind spin, and this sometimes helps. One sort of, what I say, kind of walk themselves into the astral plane or walk themselves into lucidity. And the thing with that intention, though, be specific. So if you want to solve, if you want a new job, don't just be like, where do I look for a new job? Be, where do I want to look? Where do I have to look to find a job that I will be happy at and get paid a lot, for what I do. Be specific. Because if you're just saying I want to find some place that will hire me, the place to hire you might hate it. So don't just kind of settle for I just want to find this. Be specific. Or if you want to work on something within yourself, be specific, and make sure you work it out to the best possible outcome you can for everyone involved, yourself and everyone involved. And that almost guarantees success, almost, really, seriously. Because with that intention in mind, like you're moving with the flow of the universe instead of trying to impose your will. And that's where a lot of people, once again, have this misnomer about lucid dreaming, where they think it's about imposing your will. It's about creating a dream all the time. No, it's not. It can be, and if it does, that will change your perception of reality, because then at that sense you are trying to impose your will on your reality. So that means you're going to have a very forced perspective of life. And we can see that. Especially you look at, say, other practitioners, maybe even in the metaphysical realm, they talk so absolute. And when they talk so absolute, what are they doing? It's like, well, this dream stuff is this. This dimension is this. And they're confining themselves. And they're confining their view of the world. Therefore, too. And you'll see where there are those blocks in their day-to-day based on that. Either emotional, mental, or physical blocks. because of that. And so that's why I say don't get attached to perceptions. So don't. It's not about imposing the will. It's about moving with the conscious flow of now and how you are, where you are in now, and recognizing it as a divine piece of the puzzle. And then that will inevitably really lead you to the experiences you're looking for. And yes, your desires will be played out one way or another. So that's why I say it's very important to get concise, like of what you want. So, and you can use this for anything. Like I said, I talked about finding a job, healing yourself, or finding that twin flame, things like that. Because putting out those intentions, especially in the dream realm, even if you're just looking in the dream realm, it's what I call it's what I call an astral beacon. It's like you're conceptually sort of broadcasting this concept, and that's the thing about it. It's and from there, that's where that law of attraction comes in too. So you start attracting into your life the things that you're looking for, and so that's why I said once again it's very important to be specific, because it can also work the other way. So you could attract. You can find that job, but you might hate the job. So you're attracting those elements to you. So you want to get it concise. Just like if you want to find the astral bacon, you could put out the beacon to find the astral bacon. And what happens is this is also a tool of manifestation that one maybe even uses techniques like they even call them dream boards and things like that, or subconscious tools to kind of help you get in line what you want. So your subconscious kind of aligns that and helps work with you instead of against you on that, so it knows what you're talking about. So and so that's where, how I said, we can get into things like jobs, relationships, and all that. So get it clear, who you're looking for in that twin flame, and who is that. What attributes do they have? What do they look like? All these other things like that. Get that there, and because that person, that thought form, even if for you they might seem like a symbol, there's more than likely someone who fits really close to that symbol. So that and there's a reason why you picked that symbol. So that works into who am I? Why did I do this? That kind of works into the whole thing I was talking about of gaining more awareness through awareness of self, because that's really the only way one can gain any consistency. And that also allows, say, practitioners of healing modalities that may use the dream cycle. That includes them, because that especially that helps to keep straight what is the practitioner's own issues and what is that of who that they're working with, and how are they reflections of each other. Because no matter what, in life, as friends, enemies, colleagues, coworkers, we're all reflecting something back at ourselves that's there. It's what we're sharing that, and there's a reason why we're encountering those people. So by recognizing, your identity, that identity, and then what is our identity. And that works into that whole twin flame thing too, because then you can tell. It's like, well, this whole time I thought I was attracting a twin flame, but was I really just sexually attracted to this person, kind of thing. And then you might see that by looking at like, well, what happens when that comes together, and you can use the dream realm for that. You can look at different possible configurations, so to speak, all using that same technique of awareness, using not only the meditating or walking yourself into the astral plane technique, which is detailed, and I have it detailed on my website. One version of it utilizing how to get through fears on whoslucidwhatnow.com, all one word. Then also this technique is shared by many people. It's not any one person's technique. This has probably been going on since the beginning of time. But the book that I recommend for this is Stephen LeBerg's Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming. He details a lot of different contexts one can apply that meditative lucid induction method. And then in terms of And he'll go into different applications, give specific examples. And because I could do a whole show just like, oh, this is how you would practice for cycling. This is how you would practice music. This is how you could go into this like never ending. So and then in terms of getting more overall stability too, with a sort of passive way, which I call it, instead of the active way, such as that technique of meditation in a sense, would be to recognize your day-to-day associations. That is actually at its core what the whole look at your hand and ask yourself, am I dreaming? I would say take that one even further. Look at your hand, ask yourself, am I dreaming? Sincerely think about it. Okay, like really think about it, and then ask yourself, how would I know it was a dream even if I was in my dream? Because I know the reason why I bring this technique up is because it's so prominent on the internet and different things about looking at the hand, asking myself, am I dreaming? But they don't take it any further, because I'm sure a lot of people who have had experiences where they've had dream experiences where they end up looking at their hand but didn't wake up, or they're doing that and had no success at all, like nothing changed, nothing happened. Why? Because you're acting off of already established subconscious patterns or algorithms that removes you from the astral plane while you're in your conscious awareness, which isn't true. Sleeping awake, like we were talking about. You are in a dream realm, and you're just in a different bandwidth of it, because everything is holographic, as I went into last time, and how a lot of quantum physicists are talking about now too. Even our own UT guest, Dr. Hayes, was talking a little bit about that in terms of at one point everything being wave, and this understanding that you're part of and connected to at all times, the astrals, the information layer, the Akashic records, all these things, is what's going to gain you more astral awareness, and more that will increase your odds of inducing day-to-day dreams as well, because no longer are you removed from the dream realm. You really recognize that you are in a dream, and so every night, or every time we go to sleep, our memories are emulsified and amalgamated into our current understanding and our current lexicon of symbols. And so if you make a basal change of, I recognize now that I am in a waking dream state, and that in essence, any given object in my dreams is represented in my day-to-day, that is what's happening there, is you're consciously connecting to that larger thought form, that collective consciousness, by recognizing the reflection in that, okay, my associations with this cup I'm using, and how the reason why it's a cup isn't because I like the shape of the cup, it's because it has a function, a universal function. It can hold things, or you could put things on top of it, or just different stuff like that. And those are concepts that are just there no matter what language you speak, what race you are, all these other things. A cup is still a big cup. And so those shared concepts are the things that are used to communicate in the astral plane, and are how we know sometimes when we're experiencing a telepathic experience, because you'll see less of your own representation and more of an archetypal one or a bland one. And then maybe, and if you're experiencing if you're having a telepathic experience, usually that's shaped by whoever's kind of there, and that actually helps to create its own sort of singularity, as I call it, a stability. And I can get into the whole telepathic dream thing another time, but it still has to do with the shared reality aspect of knowing that you're always connected, that you're always part of the dream realm, the astral layer, the information layer, whatever you want to call it, all the time. So just changing that in your day-to-day, and then once in a while asking yourself, it's like, what does this bottle of water mean to me? And what does it mean to me? If I were to see it in a dream, if I wanted to see this bottle of water in my dream right now, what it means to me, what would it be? And so if it's you're thirsty and you're a little dehydrated, and you're like, wow, this is like the best thing ever. I would see this as like a miracle, golden, glowing health elixir. You know what I mean? And you're starting to build your own symbols in terms of kind of like, now you might see that in a dream just by conception like that, using your own creative center, your own imagination. As that imagination really is the connection to every other possible reality there may ever be and ever will be, is the imagination. So utilize it, and utilize that to cohere your own symbols, even in your waking state. I relayed the experience last interview on Tuesday, where I had my encounter with the Christ consciousness. And how did I know it was a Christ consciousness? Because I consciously created a symbol. Because I'm like, well, if this is true, and I meant it, I was sincere, and that's the important thing. It's not just in jest. You have to be sincere about this and then turn it into your own belief and say, if this is real, this is how I want to see it. Or if this is the concept that is going to be represented, I would like to see it like this. And what happens is, even if that concept changes, let's say that my water, I want to see it as a miracle elixir, but there was even more minerals and goodness in there that was going to help me, think of an idea that was going to benefit me later. I might, in the dream now, I might not see the exact replica of that health golden serum. I might see it pretty damn close, but it also has like Einstein's head on top as the cap or something, and I didn't put that there because that's my subconscious saying, hey, it's going to give you good thoughts or some really cool thinking or some advanced thinking of some kind, or ideas that are going to manifest. So that's this is an important point to make, because I think a lot of people don't realize that everything is a symbol. Everything has its own reflection of your own cognition. Even you identifying yourself as human, and it means that you're going to see other humans a certain way. So that whole experience, even if you're having a telepathic, representational, or bilocational experience, it's still a symbol relative to the universal consciousness, especially if you believe that we move on past this life and that we've had lives other places, including here, and our soul beings. Then that really should ring true. And so if you start recognizing that everything is a symbol or a concept, you recognize that your place in there and how which concepts you identify with, which ones are going to ground you, and how I was talking about the grounding being the key component of this, of knowing, you're here experiencing Camp Human as a person for a reason. It's why you're here. And then from there, like how I mentioned briefly before, and this is something that one has to train over time usually, ironically enough, is your own sense of, like I said, temporal continuity. That doesn't mean wear a watch all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with that. The only thing it has to do is you have in your mind some kind of logical sequence of order of events for when you're dreaming. So, like, make sure you remember that, like, I went to bed, and then if I get up to do whatever, change sides, go to the bathroom, you remember that, and then you remember waking up. You start consciously doing that, because what that does, that helps us when we're trying to pull back memories of dream experiences. That gives us some kind of conceptual base to reference, because some of these memories are so lost. It helps to kind of have that line up to give you some kind of basis. Did it happen before or after I rolled over? Things like that will help to trigger more dream recall. And also, overall, when you start recognizing this and making a conscious effort to do this, it makes it easier for you to recognize that when you go to sleep and then all of a sudden you're running around in a field, you're like, I don't remember running around in the field, especially after I went to bed. And then you have the opportunity to wake up. Oh, wait, I'm in a dream. And this gets into that sort of, like I said, one might call that sort of intermediate level of when someone's dreaming consistently all the time but might not wake up all the time. So this will definitely help those for sure, because just recognizing that you're actively participating in your dreams all the time anyways, will in terms of our waking conscious, because those dream experiences are reflections of our waking consciousness. And And so even the most fantastic stuff, the higher self communications, extraterrestrial communications, the spirit communications, all of those fall on the sequence of your own timeline. And so it's still that whole, it's still a dream. It's still all, you're still experiencing it. Even if you don't even know you're getting the communication from all of the above right there, it's still happening. So you have to recognize that at any time because of that whole quantum copy, quantum haze. It's interesting when we start perceiving that, because then we start getting our own sense of power back. We start realizing how we are tied to everything, and how even the most subtle of changes or of our mind, of our environment, can make profound effects. I mean, I think we have the study of feng shui, which essentially is that, the energy flow of a room, and how a feng shui practitioner will say how you can change your house and it'll change your life. And there's truth to that. I'm sure a lot of people have changed, I'm gonna go ahead and move around this couch and some other stuff, and it makes you feel different. The energy makes you feel different. And that feeling is tied to all these associations of what you think is good, what you think is harmonious, what you think is peaceful. And all of those associations, guess what? They're all symbols unto themselves. So if you recognize that, and you even recognize in that moment of redecoration of what that means to you, and what those associations are to you, and what other associations those share. Let's say peace and harmony with your new feng shui movement is also associated with your yoga routine. So you could see yourself, and I'm going to say crossover to show how this logic can cross over sometimes. You might see yourself in this car, in your car again, all the seats gone or everything, but the car is driving itself perfectly smooth on the nice road. It's all sunny, and you're doing yoga. That could be a dream, like, hey, that movement you just did in your house is going to help your life progression and your mind and your body. And so that logic, or that associative logic, that's how you see these like how the amalgamation of different symbols, and how they have, sometimes they make sense, sometimes they don't, but that is why those amalgamate, because you're seeing the cross section of those associations, because they're giving information, because it's really a conceptual reality that we're sharing over there, not like a hard physical one. So you can have these things kind of intersect. And so, and that concept of intersection with associations is really where we get into things like the whole astral internet, as I'm kind of calling it now, I guess. Excuse me. And connecting to that astral internet has a lot to do, once again, with recognizing who you are in this reality and how it's being reflected. And that's a big general statement, but it's where you have to start, because you recognize, like in any given dream, it's you, but it's only a reflection of you because of what is defined, how you're defining you, and that's defined by essentially where we're at, in terms of human existence on Camp Human. We're only here because we're part of this collective human reality here, and so. Even when you have the symbol about your house, your family, your friends, all that stuff like that, there is still aspect of them telepathically in there. And this gets into some of those quantum hologram concepts of how the potentiality of anyone existing in any given place in the universe is just as high. And when lensed in the proper way, one might say. And it's that same thing. So let's say even we're having a highly symbolic dream about our family and not getting along with them. Let's say we just don't get along with our family members. Now, even if you're within your own head, having a fight again with this family member, and if you change that, what you're doing is you're changing that reflection of them in you. And so when you deal with this person again, you are gonna react a little bit different to them, and ergo they are going to react different to you without having to say a word. You might not even see them for a long time. Next time you do, it's almost going to be as if they knew that you had this shift in yourself too. Why? Well, that's that telepathy. That's a practical application of the telepathy aspect of how we make these changes within ourselves. We make profound changes in the world around us, and that is a action at a distance kind of thing. Now, the telepathic dreaming aspect of that is when we are actually immersed in that bandwidth of intention. So now we're going to experience the maybe we experience a negotiation, between our family member and and ourselves, and that would be effectively being immersed in that context of that telepathic transmission. But the telepathic transmissions go on regardless. So once again, it's recognizing where you stand in relation to those concepts. So, because most people remove themselves from that, I can't have I don't have telepathy. I can't have telepathic dreams. Well, no, you are already doing telepathy, whether you realize it or not, but you're just not consciously directing it. And that's the same thing with the dreams. So when we're like how I was saying, even when we're having the most personal of dream, we're going to change those perceptions of those around us by changing who we are. And so there is also, and that's kind of the basal sort of level of it, like the basic understanding of recognizing that we're always connected, like I keep saying, and that we're always connected. We always have that associative sort of arc. But then there's also the actual phenomena of telepathy, which has been demonstrated in the labs now for those who might want some more empirical evidence on that or data on that. I highly recommend looking into Dean Radin's work at the Noetic Sciences about that. There's way more empirical evidence of telepathy than there is that aspirin helps with second heart attacks. That's a fact. That's how it is. But recognizing it is the biggest thing. Now, shared dreams, though. There's different methods that are talked about. Some of the more clinical ones have to do with establishing a meeting point. So, like, for instance, utilizing that meditating yourself into lucidity technique, but now you're with someone else. It doesn't even have to be in the same room. It doesn't have to be the same time zone. It doesn't have to be the same day, even, honestly. But recognizing a meeting point. Some people meet up at a local park or just something that they both recognize and that they can recognize, together later on. And then from there, having that meeting point and an intention set is going to help facilitate that connection. And what usually happens is that when there's success, what actually happens is that you'll have shared elements, and you'll have shared elements of the dream, but then everyone's going to have their own slight skew perspective on it just because of who they are. Like I was saying, they're going to see their Blog Talk Radio on their computer slightly different than what you're seeing on yours. So it's a similar kind of setup, but usually it has that's more of a kind of clinical way in terms of utilizing some other past techniques and then facilitating this with a meeting point and an overall objective. So the only difference is you have a meeting point now, but in terms of like you just had the objective before, now you have a meeting point with an objective. In terms of day to day though, because these spontaneously happen too. I've had many spontaneous telepathic experiences, and usually these are initiated because of our natural progression on our soul's path, our life's path. And so when you open yourself up to the fact that yes, you are telepathic, yes, you do have these abilities, and you have those, and you're also connected. And so opening those channels of awareness to yourself will start opening channels of telepathic communication between you and the people who you identify with as being, part of your, part of your group, part of your soul group, that whole, on that soul plan, the people you're supposed to be with. And you'll see that is usually what happens first. We actually have a caller right now, and it's going to be my pleasure to have them on, so let's go ahead and bring our caller on right now. Hello, caller. You are now on the air with Universal Truth Evolution.
Om Namah Shivaya. This is Mark, healing for inner peace from New Hampshire, home of the portal to the crystal city of light beneath the White Mountains here in New Hampshire.
Oh, cool. So, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to maybe add to this conversation here?
Well, I just want to thank you for bringing your light and consciousness and your higher intentions to help raise the vibration of the collective human consciousness. Every one of our shows that has that higher intention is extremely important to make the 100th monkey manifest and beyond that.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely an important piece of that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that comment. And yeah, we're all just trying to do our best here, and creating more awareness in general. That's why we talk about everything here on Universal Truth Evolution. So definitely appreciate that.
So yeah, basically it's important that what really helps with all of it is bring just on daily intention, maybe at the beginning of the day and periodically as you need to just bring yourself into your divine center, tuning into your own soul energy within, through your breathing, through your heartbeat, through the God consciousness within your soul, connecting through that God consciousness to Gaia, and God consciousness within her, feeling your oneness with her, and then going up to Creator consciousness, and then feeling that connection you have with both of them in balance, feeling through your soul core, connecting with both of them at the same time, and then you can then put out the intention maybe one at a time with the collective angelic realm. They have God consciousness within them. The ascended master realm, the collective creator consciousness within them. The office of the Christ, the collective creator consciousness with them. And just maybe one at a time, and then eventually when you're ready, feel that true oneness with all that is. Time and practice. But if we put out that intention, bring us into that divine center, and I think for many of us, even myself, there are life experiences we have where others take us off that divine center into drama or what have you. We just have to constantly remind ourselves to come back into that divine centerness so they can't pull us down, which is easier said than done at times.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to recognize that when we do have those dynamic times of up and down, that those are divinely willed too for us to experience that and recognize where we truly want to head. I think a lot of people get caught up in when things aren't going right or they feel down, that they get stuck in that instead of recognizing it as kind of an opportunity to say, you know what, and so think about what they don't have, recognize what they do and where they're going. And that kind of brings one back to that center, like we were saying, of kind of not feeling without or lacking or as a victim, but as who you were supposed to be here and now.
Exactly. I mean, it's important to know that we are all creator consciousness, and that we're all one. But it's one thing to be book smart, which many are. It's another thing to truly integrate it into one's conscious awareness, into really feeling it, into really being it. There are so many light workers I see out there that know all the talk. They know all the jargon. They are very intellectual. They know what words to use, but they are not really part of the experiential experience of living it, of being it, which, most of what I do when I work with others is on experiential nature, not on the intellectual nature. Because when you're truly working multi-dimensionally, multi-universally, you are working beyond earth verbiage. You're working on pure energy, pure consciousness, pure oneness with all that is. Yep. You cannot truly intellectualize that through mental and emotional stuff on the 3D earth plane. It is an experience of love and light, of soul harmonic expansion. Like the show that I'm going to be doing on March 20th, that's going to be a big piece of it, is really working with multi-universal harmonics of creation itself, which we can all bring in and channel.
Yeah, definitely. And that's It's very true. And actually, well, while you're here, go ahead and give out the link to your show.
All right. The current show. I mean, I have been doing my show prior to the changes, where they can get my old archives from Healing Inner Peace on Blog Talk Radio. But right now, it's on Be Love Now. Cool.
So, but yeah, those are important concepts that they were talking about here, and especially integration of. That's why I like to speak about it in terms of the dream realm too, not just so much because it's where I was naturally attuned, but more because everyone goes to sleep. You know what I mean? So, and utilizing the attention of connecting to the divine, your divine self, the divine, whatever you want to call that. It does. It changes your perspective, like you're saying, because one might intellectually read all the books, but it's kind of like if there's that skeptical mind in there, or if there's too much programming in the way, the integration is what's important. It's not just the mental understanding, but it's really kind of feeling it, one could say. Because like how you're saying, it's there's the language is disseminated from that information into this, because it's like it's the only way we know how to communicate. But there's no other way. Like some of the things, there's no way you can really communicate exactly what happens on these other dimensions, because it's just something else. So.
Right. I mean, like for me, I actually shared this on one of my friends' earlier shows earlier today, which was fun. I was my father-in-law just went into a nursing home. His two cats, who had only lived with him, were old. One of them had health issues and had to be put down today. And one of my cats died of old age, health issues last year. So I communicated with her, asking her to assist them in their transition, which of course she told me yes. I then also communicated with my mother-in-law, who had crossed over 2.5 years ago, who was there, more or less, they were her cats. But they had been living with, my father-in-law, her husband, since then, in prior. And so she was also there assisting them in crossing over. So I asked them yesterday when we brought them to the animal shelter, because, of course, he was in a nursing home and he couldn't take care of them anymore, and he wasn't doing the best in taking care of them because of his health issues. And then today I could see them getting the shots that were to put them to sleep. And I could see my cat, who was right on the other side, there with them, that was working with them to prepare them. And Leslie was also over there to the side, supporting them with her love and light and to assist them in crossing over. And then later on today, as I was sharing this experience, I saw all of them together. The two cats that had just crossed over, one on her lap, the other one right next to her, and then my cat right next to them, all working together, helping them to heal with what they needed to heal, since they had just crossed over.
Yeah, that's a very, very cool story, and I think it's good that we show these kind of stories so people really can recognize the applications of intention and intentionality, and then how that even translates into not only waking conscious but in the dream conscious too. And but yeah, is there any other questions or comments you might have here? Almost out of time.
Well, if you want, maybe we can talk off air sometime, and you can be on one of my shows.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to do that. Thank you for calling today, actually. I appreciate it very much. I'll definitely have to do that. There's a couple of things I did want to touch upon before the show is over. So
go right ahead.
Yeah, but we'll feel free to stay on or just listen in the archives or the live stream here. But thanks again for calling, and thank you for all of your input and sharing with us.
Love, light, and blessings to all.
Great, thanks. And so yeah, it's like Mark was saying there, it's very important to really live these concepts, live them, and one could say, well, how do you live this? How does one live it? Well, get into the feeling, give it a shape, give it a color, all these kinds of things like that. Even if the most complex of concept, I want love and happiness in my life. How does it feel? Where does it feel in your body? What does it look like? Get those things in there, because that will start creating its own bridge to that divine conduit, to the of yourself, of that higher self, to really kind of facilitate the divine communication one is looking for in terms of working with guides, working with your higher self, manifesting things from your dreams. And I don't mean kind of like my fantasies, manifesting our fantasies. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about manifesting the highest probability of for your highest benefit, and those are benefit around you too. So having that optimal arc on life path, shall we say, by utilizing your sense of dreams and your sense of self, because ultimately that's what it is. It's not about a technique. It's not about like 1, 2, 3, think of this, build this dream, do this, do that. Those are just techniques. It's the integration, like Mark was talking about, that is key. Without the integration of these concepts, of your place in the universe and your place in relation to the collective consciousness, you're going to hit a plateau. You're going to stop. You're going to hit a block, and something will either happen or it won't happen. So you have to integrate it, just like the people who don't necessarily dream at all. You have to integrate it, and it's funny because for a lot of people who don't dream, they almost feel like it's a burden. Like they're like, oh, it's such a burden. But you have to integrate that into your consciousness, because it's like either want it or you don't. You have to go beyond the desire and actually kind of make some action steps to manifest. And so doing things like how I suggested last show for those who don't dream, even if you don't dream, have a dream journal, put your intention, wake up, record how you feel. And then you can even see, because a lot of times when we put our dream intention out, you'll see that sometimes we only have a dream about it. What will happen is it will manifest in our day, especially if it's a problem that you want solved. That actually happens quite often. Because a lot of times our subconscious is already there. You already have the divine help. It's just a matter of focusing your intention, your conscious intention, to manifest the outcome. So it's very important to know that. And same thing to know that, because it is our mind, because especially those who don't dream. I'm sure you can recall a time where you woke up and you felt really bad. You either felt sick or you felt really bad. And then you probably felt a time where you woke up and you felt outstanding, like $1 billion, and you might not have felt either way, any one of those ways, before you went to sleep. Well, it was your mind and body that did that, and your spirit, in a sense. So what I'm talking about is really channeling that and really kind of directing that into some kind of consistency with the divine plan of why you're here. And so that's why I say it's really just the mind, because like for those who have intense dream experiences every night, or maybe once in a while they'll have an intense dream experience where, days, weeks, months, years go by, right? And they wake up and like, I'm so tired. It's your mind that's tired. And then your mind makes your body tired, because where were you at? You were sleeping. Your body was sleeping. You're having a nice, cozy little snooze there in your blankets, and now you're waking up and saying you're tired? Well, that's all in your mind, because there's your mind running around, not your body. There is some body stuff that goes on apparently when this happens, when we do these things, but it's not enough to really drain you, unless you're open somewhere, either from a belief that says you're either going to get drained or you're tired by experiencing these things. But it really comes down to one's own awareness, their own filters, their own sense of identity. So create that identity that recognizes my mind is eternal, it's not in this body, and it doesn't get tired from having a fun time in the astral air. And you'll see that will become less of an issue, but you have to believe it. You have to really kind of do what you have to believe that. Do whatever ritual, do whatever, whatever modality of healing, whatever has to happen. But that has to be there. Or else, you'll manifest. You'll manifest being tired. You'll manifest all kinds of things like that, but it's really not necessary, because it's just showing you how powerful you are, your mind is, and what we can do with it. And that's really what I try to espouse here when I talk about the astral layers and dreams, is that we all are here to our creative consciousness. We are all part of the creator consciousness, and we're all here to manifest that. So do it in the way that you see fit. You are the writer, director, and star of your own multidimensional movie right now. So write it the way you want to, the coolest way possible for the benefit of everyone around you and the planet, the universe. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed what happens. So it's been a great show, once again, talking to everyone about one of my favorite subjects in life. And we'll be back next week with more great guests. And we'll keep rocking, doing our thing here at Universal Truth Evolution, bringing you all the information and news major media tends to shy away from. So until next time, everyone, talk to you later.